Reality shifting. Can you mold your world? With Cynthia Sue Larson. The Mandela Effect has us all questioning reality. But what if we could intentionally shift it? Join us as we welcome Cynthia Sue Larson of Reality Shifters, author of The Mandela Effect and its Society. We'll discover the mysteries of reality shifts, exploring why they are happening, what they mean for us collectively, and if we can consciously shape our perceived reality. Cynthia invites us to ponder how good can it get as we explore the mind-bending possibilities of a malleable world. Prepare to have your perceptions challenged and your mind expanded. Welcome to the Wellness Driven Life Show, where you're about to go on a wellness driven ride. Welcome to today's show. Let me tell you a little bit about the guest that we have with us today. Cynthia Sue Larson is a researcher, author, and speaker known for her work on reality shifts and the Mandela Effect. She explores the nature of consciousness and the possibility of consciously shaping our perceived reality, encouraging individuals to consider our world's limitless potential. I am so pleased to help welcome to our stage today, Miss Cynthia Larson. Welcome.
Thank you so much, April. It's such a pleasure to be with you today, talking about my favorite topics. So it's awesome.
Well, I can absolutely tell it's your favorite topics because you're always out there sharing everything that you're excited about, all the things that you know, the things that come to mind with your own channel and, your writings, your books, and really being able to gift us with all of the cool things that most people don't know about, but are beginning more and more to become curious about, including the Mandela Effect. But let's get started and share a little bit more about yourself so our audience can get to know you more.
Thank you. Well, my background is that I studied physics at UC Berkeley back decades ago now, and did get an undergraduate degree in that, continued on, got a master's degree in business administration with an information technology specialty. So that's all pretty dull and boring. What I was fascinated with, even back then, was consciousness. So any chance I got, I was watching Jeff Mishlov's Thinking Aloud TV show that here in Berkeley, where I live, it was on PBS. And I was just wishing I could study that. But the closest thing I could get to at the time was physics. And the nice thing about quantum physics is that it really did touch on consciousness. Not that the physicists were thrilled that happened. Actually, they were not, because they would prefer that there could be an objective reality where the observer does not play a role in the experiments that are being conducted. However, for anybody looking into quantum physics, you'll see there's no way to separate those two. You've got to have the observer. And that's different than Newtonian physics, where you can just be working in these hypothetical situations with a frictionless inclined plane and so forth. Calculating exactly how fast an object rolls down and so forth. But with quantum physics, there's so much uncertainty. In fact, there's something known as the uncertainty principle. So there's no way that you can ever know both, for example, the mass and the velocity or speed or acceleration of a particle. You can't know very much. You know one thing, but not the other. And it gets worse than that because there are things like entanglement, and which leads to spooky action at a distance, where if you've got two entangled particles, one spin up, one spin down, you're measuring one of them, but not the other. You'll know what the other one's doing because entanglement means they're responding instantly across all kinds of space and time. So it's just like, this is crazy stuff. It's now what will be used to create the quantum computers that we'll be hearing about, that we're already hearing about. And quantum technology is something that's allowing us to communicate right now via the internet. So a lot of the stuff that we depend on, it's kind of like magic. And then my specialty and my interest has to do with the internal technology, what our own mind can do to interact with matter itself. And that's what I've been studying for over 25 years.
Well, I am so excited to hear some of the things that have really, and I'm sure continue to surprise you, because when we start digging a little bit deeper and we are seeking to find things like that, more and more of it will come up. And so I can only imagine all of the stuff that is really cool that you get to experience or hear about. Cynthia, I wanted to say there's something about you that you are just so comforting to be around. And it's almost as if I know you or I've known you or something, but you have this lovely aspect of yourself that is, it really draws people in. It sends this safety, security, comfort. And so it makes a lot of sense why you are the bearer of news with all of the things that are changing and at a rapid pace. And who knows, but the good news is, right, that we are the observers, and that's where we get to play with this and really start creating. Let's start with our audience just a little bit of explaining, because I think that most of us know what the Mandela effect is, but let's just highlight some of the key things that can bring back that understanding of what exactly it is.
Yes. Okay. For people who are just new to the topic, the word Mandela is not mandala. Some people get those two confused. And it's Mandela along the lines of Nelson Mandela, named after Nelson Mandela, actually, because some time ago, people remember that they had seen that Nelson Mandela, maybe back in the mid 1980s, had passed away when he was incarcerated in jail on Robbins Island. And that was a very sad thing that some people do remember, myself included. And so Art Bell, he was a big late night talk show host at the time. He was on Coast to Coast with Art Bell, and he was getting lots of faxes and phone calls. This would be the late 1990s, the early 2000s. And they were asking, like, why is Nelson Mandela alive again? Didn't he pass away? Isn't he dead? And then the term Mandela Effect didn't quite come into being just yet. That term was coined by Fiona Broome, but I would love to start with Art Bell. I want to give him credit where credit's due, because he's certainly the voice of the late night radio show. And I got to be on one of his programs where he asked me, would I call it the Mandela Effect? And I said, no, I'd call that particular scenario, I would call that the alive again phenomenon. But he was onto something about there's a group of people noticing something together, noticing collectively that we have an alternate memory. And that's the definition I would go to and that's the one I use in my new book about the Mandela Effect and its society. I would say the Mandela Effect is a collective alternate reality. It's not a false memory. I know that's the term that's bandied about, but that's jumping to a conclusion that our memories are false. I'd rather start with the understanding that we definitely are consciousness. We are much greater than just the physical bodies that we're in. But other examples of the Mandela Effect would be the Berenstain Bears. I'm pronouncing it the way people remember. Berenstain, those vaguely Jewish bears. Are they Jewish? What's going on with that? Now it's only ever been the Berenstain Bears, like they ate too many blackberries and their paws got stained with berry juice. Very funny. And lots of other things with logos, products. In California, we have the Haas avocado pronounced Haas because it used to be spelled Haas. And now it's only ever known as Hass. I'm just pronouncing it the way it's now spelled. Supposedly it was always spelled Hass. That totally is different for me and for a lot of others. Sometimes I'll still see it in stores spelled the way I remember, because probably someone else remembers it that way. And then Christopher Anatra has a food distribution business. He's the CEO of that company, NCS, and he remembers that not only Haas avocados, but also Stouffer stovetop stuffing. That used to be Stouffer stovetop stuffing. He had people that would be receiving his foods asking, how come the food on the distribution list has changed? It used to be, what happened to my Haas avocados, my Stouffer stovetop stuffing? Now it says Kraft stovetop stuffing. what's going on with this? So when Christopher Anatra looked into it, he came to find out actually there is something going on with this. And being a courageous CEO, I think he's the first chief executive officer to step forward and say, okay, there's something weird here.
Something's going on. Yeah. Well, I want to bring in, I have a copy of your book and I'll share it with the audience without so much of the glare. But this book, my husband and I have started reading. We're not quite finished, but we enjoy our new pastime is reading at night together and before bed. So what I love very much about this particular book is you really go in full detail of all of the definitions, explanations. You really go in depth of all of the things surrounding this phenomenon, what we would say, but more so reality and shifting reality, right? And so it's a beautiful way to explain, but really have a deeper understanding. So when those keywords pop up, every now and again, people are having a more of a greater understanding of what it is, what's happening, what it means. So as you titled, the Mandela Effect and its society, because more and more people, one question that I would have is there's many people, when we talk about a collective, understanding of something has changed here. And I remember so many of those things. Is there a difference between the people who do remember, don't remember? And you mentioned something in your book, which I think is really fabulously interesting, is people who are closer to the people really don't have as much recollection.
That's right. Yeah, that is interesting that usually, for example, if someone lived in South Africa, they might tell you there's never been an experience where those of us who live here remember that Nelson Mandela died in jail. What are you guys talking about? And so that's something that does happen. And as you say in my book, I do cover both the colloquial phrases that people use, like they'd say, this is the Mandela effect, or I might call it the alive again phenomenon, like, well, he's alive again. And the reasons for what's going on, or perhaps an explanation might be something in physics known as the quantum Zeno effect, where the more you observe the watched pot, the less it has any chance of starting to boil. And you might feel like, I thought that was just an old wives' tale, that the watched pot never boils. Actually, it's true in quantum physics. You can actually put a quantum lock on a system by having just constant, incessant observation, like someone has OCD, just check, observe. If you're constantly observing it, you're locking that system in place because it stays in that static place, like where it was like one's thumb up, one thumb down. It's locked. Now, the only way it's going to change, remember the quantum uncertainty and the way things only change when you kind of look away. So if you look away, then it has a chance to operate and move. And a lot of people swear when they watch these reality shifts, that is totally happening. And in fact, a lot of people, even on TikTok videos, they'll advocate for methodologies to do a reality shift that involve occupying that left brain, that rational analytical brain, that otherwise, what is it doing? It's quantum Zeno effect, locking a system in a certain state.
So you really do have to walk away and surrender to the universe showing up in whatever way it's going to.
And there's the role of faith. You'll hear about faith in most of the spiritual traditions, and it plays a very important role. Just having, despite what it looks like, not worried at all about that. And that's another big piece of the book, The Mandela Effect in its Society, that if there's one observer observing a system, even if they see that it's locked in place, if they're looking at it very closely, you can be the second observer observing the person, the first one who's watching. And that's got a name too. So if there's someone watching, like Schrodinger watching his cat in the box, and then there's Eugene Wigner watching Schrodinger, the Wigner effect would be that Wigner is watching Schrodinger. So Wigner can actually see that Schrodinger opens the box. Schrodinger might be dismayed to see, gosh, it's a dead cat. I thought it was alive or dead, and I've opened the box, I'm checking, and now it's dead. Here's the good news. If there's another observer observing, they can actually observe the first observer and get a different result. And this has been experimentally tested recently. 6 years ago in a study that was published in 2019. So I do cite this research, as well as the physicists that have come up with these theories and the experiencers that are experiencing the phenomenon. So I've done the best I could to be as complete as possible with the history and some amazing stories about early experiencers like Carl Jung, for example, Philip K. Dick. And what did they notice that I think totally qualify as Mandela effects of their own bearing? Yeah.
You mentioned something in the book also that I found was absolutely fascinating, and it makes perfect sense. But because reality has its shifts, when you quote people or you research people or what have you, you'd have it right, and you do this extensive research, and then the book is written and it's published, and then you come to learn that there's this other brilliant mind within the subject matter that just pops up out of nowhere, and you're like, oh my gosh, I know I would have known about you because I've done such extensive research on this particular subject. And so it's just an example. Would you like to share a little bit about that?
Oh yes, that actually did happen, and I think I share it in this new book. Back when I was writing a previous book called Quantum Jumps, the year was 2013, and I was looking for all of the quantum physics research that would be supportive of what I was describing. In other words, looking for physicists who are theoretical physicists, looking at both the physics of the very, very large, astrophysics, that kind of thing, relativistic physics, and bringing it together with the physics of the very small, the quantum field, the quantum tiny microscopic particles. And at the time I wrote the book, I did the best I could to include all of the researchers, of course. There was one that I missed, and when the book came out, it was very weird. It's like suddenly he popped out of nowhere. He had hundreds of articles. He'd co-authored a paper with Alan Guth, who was the $1 million winner of one of the prizes for physics because he had worked on the Big Bang Theory. And the gentleman's name is Yasunori Nomura. And so I was shocked that, wow, like Yasunori Nomura is here. But I'd been kind of wishing that there was a local physicist here in Berkeley, and that's where he is, who was doing top flight research, which he is, very theoretical, which he is, bringing it all together, which he does. And so anytime I gave a talk, I was always including images from his research papers. And then when I went to a showing of a movie called Particle Fever, it's a documentary about the Large Hadron Collider, and it showed at UC Berkeley. So I showed up there to see it, not so much because I'm thrilled with particle physics, but I got huge intuitive pushes, like you have to go. So I dragged myself in there. And then I was thrilled to see all the name tags at the front of there would be physicists there. One of them was Yasunori Nomura. So I told him, like, yeah, oh my gosh, I'm sharing your papers everywhere I go. Sorry that you're not in my book, but I did meet him for tea, and he understood completely, like that he wasn't in the book. He understood instantly because he gets it. It's like we're living in kind of a simulation, if you want to call it that. Mystics would call it a dream. So if you think of this as one waking dream, we can wake up within it, and then we can be both observers and experiencers. That's like saying you're in a simulation and you're the programmer and also the player. And that's a similarity.
Well, that's impressive to be the programmer and the player. We're going to go into our first commercial, and when we come back, I'm really excited to continue the conversation. Stay tuned. Are you ready to take control of your ride to wellness? Rev up with Driven Living. Visit www.drivenliving.com and buckle up for a journey. Get exclusive access to our Wellness Driven Life Show guest portal, where you can dive deep into the minds of our esteemed guests. Sign up for our newsletter and get insider scoops on these distinguished personalities. It's like having a backstage pass to their life-changing wisdom. But that's not all. You'll also receive a free hug. You heard me right, a free hug. An enlightening ebook from the Driven Living team. Discover the science-backed benefits of hugging yourself. It's a fill-up for your wellness tank. Because at Driven Living, we believe in fueling your journey to wellness, both physically and psychologically. So what are you waiting for? Visit www.drivenliving.com today. Welcome back, everyone. Here with the incredible Cynthia Sue Larson on reality shifting, quantum physics, and the Mandela Effect, and all of these things. So you just left off with this amazing conversation with somebody who wasn't in your perceived reality at one point, and then here he shows up. Now that has happened for you many times, or it's happened to other people who have explained that to you, saying, Cynthia,
Yes.
I feel like you would have been in my past and you weren't. And yet here you are. And I'm so glad that you're in this reality with me. So, what does that feel like for you, though? Has there ever been any point where you felt really off kilter, where you felt unstable because of this? Or has it always been a very exciting thing for you? And why?
Well, during the years that I've been studying this phenomenon, the last 25 years or so, that's when I've tended to hear about it, because that's the years of the internet. Before that, didn't really have an internet much before that, before the late 1990s. It wasn't what it is today. So I've only been hearing about it recently. And fortunately for me, I've been studying this topic the whole time. So even though I was a little surprised to hear from people who told me that they worked, for example, for a time travel branch of the US government, and they said they would have known for sure if I existed, but obviously I didn't in those realities. It was a little surprising to hear that, but I recognized that kind of makes sense, because I wasn't, I'll put it another way. I wanted to be a little bit under the radar at that time. There's timing to everything, and I wasn't making a big push to be a household name at that time. There are a lot of reasons for that, but basically it made sense to me. And then other people would say, they would contact me and say that they did remember things that I don't remember ever having done. Like they said they were at UC Berkeley, that I'd been giving a lecture as a student. And I said, really? Because I was ridiculously shy at the time. So I had no memory of that. But instead of saying that can't be right, I asked, tell me more about it. But I think the most shocking of all of these types of experiences, and I do cover this one in the new book, was when Steve Boucher, he was a Canadian author who contacted me in, I think, what was it, I forget what year, 2017, something. And he said, you don't know me, and this may sound really strange, but I'm so glad that you're alive, because I experienced that you had died. And at this point, I'd heard from all these people that, saying like, you didn't exist. And I was in the time travel department of the government. So I wanted to hear more. I said, tell me more. I'd love to hear more. And he said, okay. And he wrote back to me, and he gave me the time, because I said, when did it happen? How did you find out? What was the nature of it? Give me more details. And all the details he gave, the timing was around the end of 2016, beginning 2017, after a long illness. It was reported by my husband on Facebook that I had passed away. The whole thing made sense, because unbeknownst to the rest of the world, I'd had a really bad case of pneumonia that winter. And in fact, I felt like for the first time, I felt like this could kill me. And I had told my parents, told my daughters, told my husband. Fortunately, I sprang back, because when this sort of thing does happen, and then now I've got a routine, like I just go straight up to the absolute, the oneness creator, and say, okay, if it's time if popular vote says time to go, I'll go. Popular vote says it's time to stay, make it so. And so I just did the little thing I do, because it pops up not all the time, but sort of became a thing. So I had that little conversation. The vote was unanimous. It was just overwhelming. Like, you stay, even though I felt like I think I'm dying. But I knew, like, okay, and that's the faith. It looks like I'm dying.
Very powerful.
It's very powerful. I just stepped back, like, I saw the vote. Looks like I'm staying. I guess that means I need more courage. So the thing that was upsetting me, I'm going to have so much strength now. So I did that, and yep, I was back. And then Steve Boucher, I could tell him, who's the guy who's contacting me, this is really true. So then I put that out to my newsletter base, all the subscribers, and asked them, anybody else notice this? And I heard from people around the world, including a woman. I mentioned her story from, I think, Denmark. And she said, I heard about this because another author told me about it, and not told her personally, but he did a video and he was talking about it. He's a biologist, Rupert Sheldrake. And she said, he mentioned you because you'd interviewed him. I said, I did interview him. Wow. And someone else remembered that there'd been a tribute that was done by Moneybag 73, Evan Maitreya. And none of these things happen because I'm not dead in this current reality. But people do remember various other things that happened in reality where I did die. So it's a whole fascinating subject.
It is, and it could be the Cynthia Sue effect. I mean, but it's that part where people can, come back, and it's just the different realities. But if there's infinite possibilities, and there's, you go into quantum physics or multiple dimension or all of these other different worlds, then why wouldn't there be all of these different aspects? So what is the key important thing here? It's a matter of choice and decisions and how we display our emotions, right?
Right. And if we are the programmer and the player in this game, or the dreamer and the consciousness behind it's observing, and also the experiencer of the dream, both, then it's really important to be engaged with the thoughts we're thinking and the questions we're asking in those thoughts. And this is where there's an opportunity to retrain ourselves, because we're in a participatory universe, as John Archibald Wheeler, the physicist, says, that when you ask nature a question, nature answers. That means you better be asking the questions that you most want to live the answers to. This is where the retraining comes in, because a lot of us, unfortunately, tend to be asking, like, oh my gosh, that went terribly wrong. Now what next? These come in threes. So that would be cancel. So whatever's happening, no matter how bad it may seem, even the dead cat in the box, you open the box, it looks dead. Yeah, I might seem dead, so forth. Then you just ask, how good can it get? That's what I recommend. That's my go-to favorite spice. Add it to whatever else may be happening, no matter how good, how mediocre, how wonderful. If you ask how good can it get, not just for yourself, but for everyone involved, then magic can start happening. And I really do highly recommend that.
I think that's really the key here, is really pondering that often, frequently, continuously, and then it's just going to be that automatic state of mind, that experimental part, the excitement piece of ourselves, the exploratory nature of being human, where we get to live out life and we're excited to do so because we're like, wow, what else is next? How good can it get? And I love that you mentioned too the cancel piece, because there are thoughts that just tend to pop up and we're like, well, I really didn't need that thought or want that thought, cancel that out. And how good can it get? Cynthia, you are such an extraordinary guest here on the Wellness Driven Life Show. I've been very excited about this opportunity.
Mhm.
And, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your knowledge, and this beautiful message to all of us. Is there anything else you want to share with our audience today?
Well, if you're interested in the topic, check out my newsletter. It's currently on Substack, but my website has the newsletter sign up, and my books. I've got a meditation CD. It's got links to things I'm doing, events, and so forth. I'll be doing a live event in Colorado in August in 2025, so I'd love to see you there in person. My website is realityshifters, plural.com. So please sign up for the newsletter, check out the website. You can see all the past newsletters there that I've been publishing for over 25 years, and check out these events. I'm also affiliated with the International Mandela Effect Conference, which is on YouTube. We do monthly live streams, and often we do in-person conferences as well. So check that out at imec.world.
Oh, absolutely fascinating. And I have to say, as a subscriber to your newsletter, they are the ones that I open up. And I'm sorry for all of you who know I'm getting your newsletters, but I just love the content that you have. It's always intriguing to me. And so it's very much in alignment with the things that I'm excited about learning about. And the journey is really just, you have to be open minded. And just like you were asking the questions to those people, it's like, tell me more. Like, what was this like for you? And so, absolutely, I want to make sure that, again, everyone knows where to find you. Realityshifters.com. That's been displayed here on the screen. For those of you listening in, again, realityshifters.com. It's in the description below. So, again, thank you so much, Cynthia, for
Oh,
being a guest on the Wellness Driven Life show.
thank you, April. It's been such a pleasure.
It has been. And thank you to our audience, because without you, the show wouldn't be possible. So, goodbye for now, and we will see
Mhm.
you next time.